What's it like taking a step out of your own comfort zone? Well, let's expand that. What do you think it's like to take your company and try to create a new company that's outside of the comfort zone of what everyone is used to? And they're looking at you from afar going, what exactly is going on over there? What are they trying to accomplish? But over time, the goal is to expand everyone's viewpoint, to really embrace change. But sometimes when you have to embrace change, you have to be the first one. So it's sort of move to a new circle of influence. And that's what my guests are doing. Paul J. Daly and Kyle Mountsier are the creators of the Automotive State of the Union. And their goal is to build a new version of a media company meets information hub, meets community, meets town square, that puts its arms around the whole of the automotive industry, not just a certain piece of it, and create content and share content and give voice to everyone who's working in the industry, as well as expanding that content to see how that industry fits into other retail, which fits into the economy at large, which fits into pop culture and everything in between. It's an exciting adventure that they're going on, and I can't wait for you to meet them. They're two of my favorite people, and they're going to talk about their upcoming event, which is in September of 2022, whenever you're watching this, a SodaCon, which is a new version of a conference in the automotive industry. And I can't wait for you to hear about it and hear their vision and their passion. As I said, we have a lot of fun in this as well. So let's dive into today's episode of You're in Charge, Now What? With Paul Daly and Kyle Mountsier. All right, I am back with two of my favorite people, Paul Daly, Kyle Mountsier. Now, wait, I know I don't have a beard. I tried. So for those of you watching, I have three hats that I have been given. I have this one. In clarity, I have this one, right? And then I have the Asotu hat here. So I think we're going to put the Asotu hat on. Except,
mess up that beautiful
that's too
hair.
small. That one doesn't fit me. So I guess I got to go back to old school, because this one
OG.
We got to go.
You need one of
here,
these guys.
so.
This is the mammoth hat. You need one of these guys.
I know.
That's,
see, because I got the big head.
Even
this one makes me look like I'm wearing my kid's hat. Although I'll tell you, my kids
look
love
how
these
good
hats.
his hair stayed in place.
I know.
Well,
that's listen, it's a lot of gel. But anyway, that is one thing, folks. If you are doing putting out swag, you got to have swag, one that looks good, but it's good quality, because my kids love it and they fight over these hats. So anyway, I'm glad you're here. So there's number one, point one, swag. Always make sure you have good swag. So guys, I really want to talk about what you're doing currently with the Automotive State of the Union and the evolution of it and your upcoming SodaCon. But I want to go backwards a little bit because, Paul, when you and I first met years ago, I don't even remember now how many years, but it's been a while.
I have our first photo, actually.
Do you really?
I
love that. You
I
guys
wish I had it. I do.
Because that was at CBT, I believe. Is that
it was? And I was like, he seems like he knows what's going on, and he's smiling. So I'm going to go talk to him.
I'm smiling, so go talk to him. He seems harmless.
You were standing in front of like the Vista Dash like demo board. I remember this.
That's where we were. So the point, what I want to talk about for both of you, but and Kyle will get to you in your journey here for a second. But when we first met, you had sold your previous business. You had the agency and you were creating content right out of the gate. But it's been this evolution now of, your agency side and your consulting side. And then all of a sudden, Automotive State of the Union was more of a, started Clubhouse and a little one event. And now it's taken on this life of its own. So what I want to talk about is why this new iteration or this new sort of path that you're taking this on from agency life to, I want to call it media, and maybe one foot in each. So talk to me about why that and what it's been like for this transition.
So, the timeline as it is that Asotu, my desire was always to serve the industry. I fell in love with the automotive industry coming into it. My first company, even on the fixed op side, and then, started making content inside of that industry for our own culture, then started servicing dealers with their marketing, because I believe that brand marketing was the way to actually turn for retail automotive. And so I was just making content to serve the industry with the mentality that, like, really Gary V model, right? Like jab, 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 right hook, right? Or
Mhm.
in the best case scenario, like jab, 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 right hook. And so that was the mentality that I was in. So as we served more with the agency, I just got more relationships across the country. And then the pandemic hit, and no one knew what was going to happen. And
Mhm.
because of all these relationships I had built over the years, I was just on Zoom calls with people all over the country, a lot of dealers across the country, and no one knew what to do or what was coming next. And everyone just seemed to feel better when they were sharing what they were doing and hearing what other
Right.
people were doing. Cause there's a big, like, oh, you're dealing with that too. This is what you're doing. And there was so much variety, even from the states, right? State to state was so different. And
Mhm.
so I just thought, how can I scale that feeling that everyone seems to have when they're together? And
Right.
I said, let's do a live stream, and I'll grab a few of my special forces troops in
Mhm.
congruent my agency at the time, and it's like, let's sneak into the office. Hopefully, we won't get shut down, and let's
Right.
put on a live stream. Asked everyone I knew to introduce me to the people that I thought would be good on the stream. Everyone showed up. Every industry partner said, yes, we'll promote the event. There was no money that changed hands, and just thousands and thousands of people showed up. And then, so we did another one. Actually, I was looking at the shows, the initial live streams that we did. We
Right.
actually did 3 of them within 6 weeks in the very
Right.
beginning. We did one early April, one late April, and one mid-May. And
Hmm.
then that's how it started.
So to that point, and during COVID, I think Clubhouse was a big leverage point for a lot of us to have that meeting point and collaborate and join. And to your point, I think all of us leveraged these different platforms to just connect again, because you did feel so isolated. And even working for your clients, you felt like, I'm just working with my client. And we all did. I'll speak selfishly. I needed input from people. I needed to connect with people. And the phone call was good, but seeing faces and joining around. But Kyle, during that time for you, your path was a little different, because when I first was introduced to you and met you, you were in the dealership. And as I said
Right.
in the preview, for many people looking at you, if you were a marketer in a dealership, you were at that elevated position, meaning that you had multiple dealerships, you had autonomy to make decisions, you were the one who was leading the charge. And for many people, were going, oh man, I'd love to be what Kyle was doing. And then all of a sudden, a certain period of time, you're like, all right, I'm done with this part of my journey. So talk to me about your transition and why you made the jump out of retail.
Yeah. So initially and I still have a great relationship with the dealer group that I left. And I had a great role.
Mm-hmm.
I always have had an entrepreneurial spirit. So, even working at Nelson, I was also pastor at a church and on the board of directors of a nonprofit. I think through the 8 years that I was with Nelson, I think my job role changed, 9 times maybe, right? Because I was always just search, like, where can I fit in? Where can I plug things and find new gaps to fill? And, through that last couple of years, I really had just a desire stirred up in me to, have some level of greater impact on the automotive industry. And so
Mm-hmm.
it kind of all came to a head in those last, few months of like, yeah, the energy for me in particular was just like, there's more that I want to have the ability to impact past like conversations or LinkedIn or anything like that. And so the transition made sense, internally for us as a team, and then externally meeting Paul and meeting so many others in our industry. And initially, Paul and I set out to build Contagious, which was going to be kind of a learning system for
Right.
marketers to find their way to the place that I had gotten to, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether it be, marketers that were experts or just bringing more marketers into the industry and doing that. And the belief was really founded on that the marketing department can be and become the heartbeat of the dealership, because a lot of marketing people kind of have their heads up for what's happening in culture or technology, or, the way that people are experiencing, consumer experience inside and outside of auto. And so it's this place where you can cultivate brand, cultivate the empathy, like you were talking about what Paul's agency Congruent did. And so that was kind of like the heartbeat of what we said, that you could really shift the culture of the entire industry around the marketing departments and individual dealerships. Well, what happened in those first few months was, we had both been a part of, I had been a part of what Paul had thrown, the family reunion at Digital Dealer in Tampa.
Right.
And we were like, we've got to do that again. So it was kind of this like, all right, I'm just like, I'm going to slot in and help out with that. Right. Cause at that point it was still kind of, Sodu was definitely Paul's, right.
Mm-hmm.
And just kind of slotted in, and this energy started forming. And we were like, are we billing this thing as like a contagious or a congruent thing, or is it Sodu's thing on its own? And, there was all this energy around doing an event at Vegas Digital Dealer that year.
Right.
And, like, I think you kind of asked this to Paul, like, why is this kind of where is this kind of taking shape? And it was really that event that provided the impetus for more energy around Automotive State of the Union. Later that's become a company, but it's crazy. I'll never forget the night after that event, and we're sitting in this so Darren Doan videoed the event, and you'll get, if you're coming to a SoduCon, you'll get to meet Darren Doan, but he's just this he's just a gritty thinker, right? Like when you think about the people that are just constantly thinking past the energy of what everybody else is, he's that. And he's sitting there, and we're all sitting back, and we're all just exhausted, toast after like throwing a huge event. Right. And he's like, I don't think you understand what you're trying to do.
We're like, we don't think we do either. We don't either. I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
No, but to that point, I just want to go back to one thing you said, because I want the people who are listening, who are in the dealership still, you were blessed with, of course, your role changed 9 times, as you said. Part of that is your entrepreneurial initiative and your impetus to move forward. So that's a good lesson for everyone who's listening, who's in that position, is raise your hand, get involved. But also on the flip side, you obviously were working with leadership that embraced that or encouraged that. And I think I remember having a conversation with both of you about, the first iteration of, Contagious, where you were saying, we want to be those people that can train those people. Well, I want to build the Kyles that are there who don't know where to go for the training and don't know where to go for the education. And I thought that was admirable. I know how difficult it is because we've done some training with our agency too, and it's just very, very, very tough. So again, for all of you out there, again, I know we're heading over to, about Automotive State of the Union, but it don't miss that desire to raise your hand. If you want more, you have to raise your hand. You have to get involved. Notice how many times Kyle said, I just inserted myself. I had know where I was going. I just raised my hand to help. I just want to be there. Paul and I have known each other, and we do that for each other. It's like, what do you need? Need help? Okay, we're there. No questions. It's just like, okay, we're here. We're showing up. That's really important for building yourself, your career, be it a company. Be careful of everything being transactional. Like, I'm not going to unless I get X.
Yeah. What's crazy? Like in that timeline, how many people were either like, whether they knew it or not, whether it was direct mentorship or indirect mentorship, were impactful in allowing me to learn across the automotive industry. Some were like very, very direct relationships, like, hey, tell me about what you did when X happened, or when you were trying to figure out why. And then some were, just paying attention to live streams and conferences and LinkedIn and learning. And, Google was my best friend, right? It's like, because there isn't a lot of learning, across the industry outside of like sales and fixed ops, right? There's just not a lot of that's where we spend our time as an industry. We train sales, F&I, and fixed ops, and that's where the majority of it goes. And so if you're in any space, it doesn't matter if you're in accounting or in any space across the dealership or dealer group that doesn't have like a widely served learning environment, it's not like there aren't people or resources out there to to go do it. You might have to do a little bit more digging or self-taught learning.
Mhm.
But there's definitely an interest in like collaborating as an industry to make
And
sure that
there's so many people out there that will help you. And that's the other
Without a doubt.
encouraging thing for all of you who are listening to this. Don't be afraid to ask, because most people will. My wife used to always say, and to your point, and this is where the mentality has to change, the further away you are from the money, the less important you are. Right. So think about that. The less marketing sometimes is seen as a spender of money. Right. Sales is, oh, I have money. And so to your point is, just because you're not on the front line of sales or they're not providing doesn't mean that you can't find your own training. Number two, you can't find collaboration. Reach out to people, ask questions. Don't be afraid. I will guarantee you, all you listening, you reach out to either of these two gentlemen, they will answer you and they will help you and mentor you. So Paul, then in that conversation that Kyle was talking about, to get back on track about ASOTU, because I'm fascinated with it. You're having this, we've all been there post event. You're just, catatonic,
drooling on yourself.
Right. You're drooling on yourself going, I just want to go to bed. But when Darren said that to you, I don't think you know what you have or what you can do. And what did you see it? Did you know what he meant? Or was it one of those things?
Well, he explained, he explained it a little further, and he says, what you've done is you've assumed the center, meaning that the center, he's like, what you're saying is that the center of the conversation in retail automotive has moved from what it has traditionally been.
Mm-hmm.
And you've gone and stood in that spot that is the new center. And you've brought all the people around you that are thinking in that way where it's going to be. And now you have assumed the center. And that's really what happens in times of massive disruption. The center moves, and the people that assume the center first are the ones that are able to lead it into the next iteration.
Right.
And so when Darren said that, it clicked for us, right? Because we kind of walking away like this is just what we do, right? We just do events and we meet people and we put people together and we have conversations. It's just the nature of how we operate. And for him giving some outside perspective on his observations after seeing so many different industries go through transition and being a part of their teams and the innovation there. And so the next day, like that was just drilled into our heads. And we had a workshop to teach mid-morning at Digital Dealer, and we were teaching it together, and the room was packed, and they had to close the doors, right? And we were walking there, and I was like, I don't understand. This is the strangest thing. I am not motivated to do this right now. And it's the most bad. It's the craziest feeling, because like you get excited to teach. You're usually excited to be in front of people, excited when there's a packed crowd, right? All that is great stuff. And, we went and we did it, and we had a great time in the room, but it's that thing that Darren planted in us. We were like, actually, ASOTU is how we are going to move the needle in retail automotive much more quickly and much more impactful across the entire dealership. And, so Kyle and I, we were talking and he showed me some things and ideas, because at the time we had a weekly email, and he showed me like kind of a business model he knew of to move it to a daily email, and then started like the fledglings of how this would actually become a media organization. And we're in like, what casino was it? It's the Bellagio?
No, it was in
what the heck was it?
Well, we kind of got ice cream at Harrah's, right? Which was hilarious. Like, we'll tell you,
it's really hard to find ice cream in Las Vegas. They
don't make ice cream anywhere. It's crazy. And then we came back. I think it was Digital Dealers was it at the Aria? No, it was at the Mirage, right?
The Mirage, right?
Yeah.
So we went and we had a walk to go find ice cream, and we come back and we're standing in the lobby just eating ice cream cones like a couple of 12-year-olds in the middle of a casino, and everyone's on their way into the Digital Dealer party for the night. So everyone's like really dressed up, and we're here eating ice cream cones, huddled over Kyle's phone as he's like, oh, and then we could do this and look at this and look at this, getting super excited about the future of ASOTU. And so that moment for us is, I think we can both look back to that moment and say, that's when we realized that this is the building we needed to build in this industry for this time.
Right.
And so that was definitely a flag in the ground moment for us that we always go back to.
No, and I think that's, again, just unpacking a couple things that you were saying, is that idea of moving, anytime you move, anytime you try to do something, and rereading the book that you had reminded me of, and I read it. I had to go find it on my shelf again, which was The Innovation Stack by Jim Mckelvey. And I know you're interviewing him for your own podcast, and he's going to be speaking at the event in September. But the interesting thing that he talks about is the idea of when you're trying to do something, you can either replicate what's currently out there, which a lot of people do, or you have to go out and you say, I'm going to try something completely different. But in that completely different, it then stacks on top of itself with, well, then that's going to lead to another problem or another thought or another thought. And so,
yeah, his phrase that he uses in the book is, so we had to.
yes,
we wanted
exactly.
to do this.
Exactly.
And if we were going to do that, well, so we had to do this.
We had to do this
that was
in
the
order
case,
to
so
make
we had
that
to
work.
build this, right?
Exactly. And we've, in our career, my brothers and I in automotive, we've felt some of that, but you're making a bigger jump. When we started our events, let's say there was only one other event and we did ours, but it was different because we said, well, we don't want to be them, but we still needed to be in a certain framework. But it's this evolution of what I'm seeing now. And why I'm focusing on this is because I think there's some confusion when you move to that center or shift it and start gathering the troops and people are there. You have all these people on the outside. And I've heard it a few times, and that's why I wanted to talk to you about it, is people are going, what the hell are they doing? What's point B? Because I think they're trying to still look at through the lens of where they are, from their circle over there, they're looking at it across the way going, what are they doing? That doesn't look familiar. I don't know what they're doing. They're going to fall on their face, whatever it is. Yeah. So talk to me about that. Either have you heard that? Is that something you care about? Is that something you're addressing? Or is it just, no, in time, it'll clarify itself?
Yeah, I love that question, first of all.
That's a great question.
There's one thing that we always do, and we did it individually, and when we got together, we just kind of doubled down on this mentality, and it's we swing for the fence every time. And sometimes in the beginning, in early ASOTU, we were just, it started out swinging for the fence. I'm gonna have Jason Stein and Jim Fitzpatrick on together. We're gonna get Rhett Reichert, the chairman of NADA, on this live stream. He's never, we never did that. It all came together. And then we start, doing things together. We threw the Troublemaker event in Vegas, and we swung big. We're going to do live content at the event, and things worked. Things didn't work, right? We didn't have enough people there. It was kind of a mess. It was hard to hear, but everyone's still right. And like legit, it's like, that's a growth. That's like, okay, we have to learn from that and move. And then when it came to doing a daily email, like, hey, we're just going to start writing it. So every single day, Kyle and I would get together and spend 2 hours writing an email that was going to go out to our email list every day. And then the transition, like to get to your question, what the hell are we doing? Mm-hmm. Like, we are building a modern media company for retail automotive. We like to contextualize it this way. We're building a record label. We're building Death Row Records, right? And we want to change the face of hip hop on the planet, right? So we want to be the label, right, that people look to curate the artists that they like and to give them commentary on that and to get all the people that are great at that together. So then we can constantly provide them with a steady stream of information, of pop culture, of things that help them actually implement in their regular day-to-day. Mm-hmm. And also know what's coming over the horizon, or at least have a good feel. Kyle had a great just one-liner that he popped out. Who were we on? We were with Steve Greenfield. And
yeah,
Kyle,
that's right. Yeah.
Kyle,
Steve was like, write that down.
I was like, I already did. Kyle said every horizon has a now. And so, that just so aptly envelops how we run as ASOTU. So we brought on some investment. We brought on 7 dealer investors. Mm-hmm. So we are the only dealer-owned media company in automotive. Like, we know it's like, this is never trying to displace like automotive news. Automotive news does really important work, and we couldn't do what we do unless they do what they do. Right. We're trying to envelop a more holistic lane where people can connect and talk about the important things in auto in a way that we just think modern people communicate everywhere else outside of auto. So.
So, go ahead. People are like, so why does a media company matter to me in my business? And a lot of times when you hear media company, you think like Automotive News, CNN, and Wall Street Journal. And the way we're the way, like, when we say modern media company, we're contextualizing that for like the way that people communicate, whether it be social media or in-person events or webinars or micro events or even email newsletters, right? Is that like there's so much out there. There's just like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know this because you're kind of around a lot of different things. Like you could spend all of your hours of every single day trying to consume all of the things that are trying to like lead a conversation into whatever's next. And
Right.
so our goal is to kind of amalgamate that and like do the work of finding all of that so that people can start to have a conversation around their dealerships or like industry partners and dealers can have more of like a place to say, yeah, this is a conversation thread that we can have that purposes us towards solving the consumer experience or the employee experience. Because if we know that if we solve the consumer and the employee experience in automotive, like automotive not just survives, but thrives from a retail automotive perspective.
Oh.
And so that's like the end goal is like, we're building a media company that crafts and creates a conversation on ensuring that the consumer and employee experience is fixed in a way that sees retail automotive not just survive but thrive. And so there's a lot of different lanes that goes through.
Can I tag on to that for 1 second?
Please.
Because even as you're saying modern media company, that's how we talk about it. We're hesitant to say this word because it's becoming a buzzword now. It's the same buzzword that brand was, for the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So we don't like to sling it around. But the reality is that we are and have been and are going to be laser focused continually on building a legitimate, like dollars to like community, like a real community of the people who think the same way, who constantly interact with this conversation. Because, like you get news sources that drop a story and then the conversation disperses into dozens of sub communities around automotive. Right. And they all have kind of like a unique, communities gather because people have some, common traits and common, perspectives on how things should go. So what we're trying to do is build the single biggest community in automotive that has that mindset of the new center.
So to that point then, so I'm going to play devil's advocate. Some
Please.
people here are going to go and say, well, we have automotive news. And for many of us, we know automotive news serves a certain audience, right? So when you go into a dealership, it's usually on the dealer's desk. It doesn't get down to anyone else. It's a lot of time it's, manufacturer level, global issues. It's not really focused on the day-to-day, so to speak, of an individual dealer. They might highlight a dealership going, look at this great idea. Someone will say, well, you have CBT out there, and CBT is still a media player, and they've done very good job over the years of creating shows, so to speak. My brother had one, and a bunch of other people would go on, and it was all informational to help you, and that focused more on, a lot of it was tier 3-ish, the individual dealer. So someone just listening to you is going, yeah, but we sort of already have something like that. But what I'm hearing is, and correct me if I'm wrong, the way it's clicking in my head is, yeah, that's a place for me to go get my information. And they do a good job of curating, same thing, and they've used it in Northwood University when I taught there, CBT and this one. And, because it sort of went through and did, as you said, I think it was Kyle, sorting through everything and saying, here's a couple things that are important that you should focus on. But the conversation's all spread out to your own little individual place. It sounds like the community is becoming to say, this is sort of the town square where we want to create this information hub that is relevant and newish, I guess, because a lot of times in your newsletter, you're talking about a variety of things. It's just not car. It's what's going on here, what's going on there, which again is part of the viewers' daily life, because they see that now you're having this hub where I can get a lot of really good, interesting things. But now you're saying I'm also going to create an area where you all can communicate with each other, either in person, online, however. Is that the piece that's different than everyone else?
That's definitely
communication hub
differentiation factor for sure.
Okay.
I think some of the others are this. We approach automotive through a much broader lens. We back it out and we say, this sliver is the automotive industry, and here's the economy, and here's retail in general, all retail, and here's the economy, and here's pop culture, right? And so like we zoom out often, every day actually, and we say like you can't understand what's going on here or where this needs to go unless you really have the context of all the other things spinning around it.
Right.
I think that's a big differentiator for the way we approach automotive news. And the O in the middle, ASOTU, we're like, that O in the middle means something to us because we've decided that we are going to draw a big circle around the entire industry, meaning we want lot attendants to be interacting with the content. So we need to make content that they will find engaging, and we need dealer principals to engage with the content. We need them to find things that are interesting. And again, we think all of that converges in this big kind of ecosystem of, you know, automotive news, world news, retail news, culture news, and like even things like what the kids are at. So those are two differentiator factors. I know there are more, but those are just popping to mind. And like, why are we different? Those are two things.
Yeah. No, but I think that's important for people to understand. As I said, I think that's part of the potential confusion because they're trying to look at what you're doing through the same lens of other places that they receive information. But I remember when you and I first talked about this, and maybe Kyle was there, I can't remember, or it was early on, maybe it was just the two of us. And that was the thing that stuck with me is you said, I want everybody at the table for the information or having access to it. It wasn't just the dealer or a manager or it was like, I want the lot attendants. I want the frontline people. I want the people behind I want everybody who touches this. I want the vendor community to read this and be engaged with this because it all impacts it. And I like that idea of, I think every business sometimes can fall into, we only look at our own industry for feedback or new ideas versus saying, well, wait a minute. I just went on a great vacation, so to speak, and I love the customer service there at that hotel, and it made me feel good. What could I take from that and see if I could do something in the dealership with this, right? I think by expanding it, one, it allows a break mentally of this is the 15th automotive article. My head's like, versus look at NFTs or, hey, look, Stranger Things, like things that you're throwing in from the pop culture. It just is refreshing. But ultimately, it is this bonding of everybody together. I think that to me is what's exciting about what you're trying to build here, because it's not just a media company. And that's where I would challenge you to say, to your point is we keep saying that, but it is that idea of it's this community hub, town square, and we're going to talk about a lot of things, but the ultimate goal is to make our industry better.
Yeah. Yeah. We've kind of recently been calling it kind of a beacon. Like here's a lighthouse that you can walk toward. And whether you're far away from it or close to it, like it's still something that you can walk toward and look to. So you might be like, look, you might be way out there going, all of that stuff doesn't make any sense. Like it's hard to spell NFT, blockchain doesn't make any sense. A new consumer experience, single point of contact, one price doesn't, whatever it may be, agency model, all of that doesn't make sense. And there's no way, I'm penciling on paper, in a Foursquare still or whatever, right? All the way to, like maybe like the center of the little light, which was Brian Kramer trying to transaction in the metaverse, like wherever you're on that spectrum, you're a part of the community. And like the desire is just to draw closer and have more conversations with more people across the industry. So the other part of that is what we recognize is that if, the dealer principal, the industry partner, the OEM rep, the consumer, and the lot attendant aren't all involved in the conversation, then we slow down innovation.
Right. Well, and that's funny you say that because I think that's absolutely true because, I've said this multiple times because it was said to me is that, it may make sense to you, Glenn, in the boardroom or in your office in your executive meeting, but down here in the front line, that doesn't work. And unless we don't have that connection up, then we're just either pushing our ideas down and it's frustration. And I think the more connection you have. And the other thing that I think is something that I would highlight because I like it is that your stuff is entertaining, meaning that it's not heavy handed. I love the daily conversation the two of you have because you're excited about it, you're passionate about it. It's not 14 hours long. It's like, hey, 15 minutes, 10 minutes, we're in and out. But it's a place where people can touch base. It's like your morning news show. What's going on, what's happening. Here's the weather. Here's this sports. I got a couple highlights. I'm off and running. Now, if I want to go dive deeper into something, I know where to go. But it's building those trusted resources around that. And initially, when anything's new, people are like, well, I don't understand. But I think it's that commitment to that, because we have to, then it figures itself out.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, look, we've made a lot of mistakes. We're making a lot of mistakes, and we know that's just the nature of moving fast, and that's the nature of trying to figure out what is the best iteration to deliver, and that is constantly changing. And so I know, like, people that have sponsored with us in the past, or people that have seen some of the content and thought it's maybe like, is that too goofy or is that too disorganized? I will say this. We've always, as entrepreneurs, like, we learn quickly, and like, as things come up, like, we're constantly in a state of solving, right? So I feel like as more people come onto this team, and we have some really amazing A players that are either on the Asoto team now or are about to join the Asoto team, and so we're learning every day, and we're working harder, and we're big differentiator here. We spend a lot of time listening. We spend a lot of time in the comments. We spend a lot of time paying attention to everything else that's going on in automotive. And I'm not even saying, like, we're not even really paying attention to what the other media outlets are doing, right? Because we have our thing, right? And we know that serving,
and there's enough space for everybody.
Absolutely. That's, we were saying this at AsotoCon, and as we were presenting, what this event is going to be, and it's very different and unconventional. And we hope that by putting on an event this way, we believe that automotive events in general need to change. We're not saying that they're terrible, they're bad. Like, we need a lot of what's going on, but they need to think a little bit differently about the approach. And then some of the events need to stay like they are too, right? Like, there's definitely this, but we're hoping that through putting this out there, like, we can only have 600 people at our event, right? There's a lot more than 600 people that need to be with other automotive professionals, and we'll be at the other events too. Right. But we're saying, hopefully by doing this, it gets people to just even approach a little differently, or look at what's working. Like, your events, you and Brian, the events you put on really are some of the best, most substantive events I've ever been to in automotive, because they're crafted around, like, being together for longer periods of time. And they're crafted around conversations more than just one-way dialogue. And so, like, there are a lot of things that we feel are most beneficial for the auto industry. That element right there is, like, perfect. I love going to a Pasch event. And so
I appreciate that.
And so, to all that to say, it's like, we're learning really quickly. We're adapting really quickly. And we're trying to, like Kyle said, like, be the beacon, not just it's for anyone, which means the other media players too, right? Because if one of us loses, kind of all of us lose. And that's how we're approaching this.
Right. So there was something you said, and I want to, again, I always like to highlight and pull things out, because we all talk very, very fast.
Yeah, we do.
We do.
Kyle talks fast enough to be from the Northeast. That's all.
He does. He has enough energy. He's like, he's definitely speeding up. We're going to adopt him to be an honorary Northeaster.
Honorary Northeaster.
But you said that we're always in a state of problem solving, right? Because I think we all have a tendency, I'm guilty of it too, is overthinking. And I remember reading a book, Seth Godin, one of his first books, Linchpin, always said, you got to have a ship date. You got to have a ship date.
Got to get it out.
Pick a date and go. As good as it's going to be, get it out, because you'll learn more by it getting out than overthinking it. So I love that idea. So
literally, we post stuff on social that the last thing that one of us says is, it's good enough. We'll fix it. We'll fix what we didn't on the next one. Because like, if it doesn't go now, like, it's either not relevant anymore, or we didn't try hard enough, or we didn't get the research right.
Well, yeah, we my brother is, and we laugh. He's the gas, I'm the brake at times, but he's notorious for, we're going to do an event. And I'm like, well, let's talk. He goes, all right, I picked a date and a venue. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? He's like, we'll figure it out. And I was like, all right, I guess we'll figure it out. But So talk to me about it, because I want to pivot. We have a little bit of time left here. I want to talk specifically about the event, because, you're heavily influenced by looking at other events outside of automotive. You were just at VCon, Gary Vaynerchuk's event. So talk to me about what can people expect? Because if the expectation, this is why I want to highlight it, if the expectation is I'm going to go to something that is similar to what I know, and now I show up and I don't even know, I'm just picking this out of the air. Where's the exhibit hall, and where are the sponsors, and where are the rooms? And you're like, hey, it's just open space and whatever it is. Like, what's different, and what should someone expect when they come? And you should all get tickets, because we'll make sure it's all posted. You should definitely get tickets to this event in September. But what about it? What should people walking in expect if their only lens was previous automotive conferences?
Oh, a lot. So
give me a few, Kyle.
Yeah, I'll give you a few, but really it's interesting because sometimes setting is everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And not that it's all things, but there will be a lot of experiences that are somewhat similar in just like the way that they're presented, but the space in which they're presented will allow you to kind of like open your mind. Actually, Michael Cirillo was with us the last time we were in Philly, and he was like,
I know you two with the beards and the black hats. I'm just like, I either have to grow a beard or something to hang out with you. I'm just go buy one. I don't know. Anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But no, he walks into the venue at what's called the Xfinity Live Center. It's in, when you get there, you're going to be in between the 4 ballparks that are in Philly. They're all kind of on this massive land grab. And then right in the center of them is this Xfinity Live Center. And it's the only way to describe it is the largest bar that I've seen anywhere, wrapped by 4 restaurants that are also bar-ish. That's like a total event space meant for, like, I mean, literally that when they sent us the original, like, here's the private events, like look and feel, they had like wood chopping and clay shooting events here. Right. So it's not a hotel or a conference center or anything like that, where you would go into a banquet hall that's 4 white rooms, 4 white walls and some chandeliers. So immediately walking into the space, there's like literally a Chickies and Pete's and a Geno's cheesesteak in the actual event space, bars everywhere, and an elevated VIP center, screens, ribbon banners. So just like the way your brain will start to engage the content that you're about to receive will be different. I talk about in speaking, doing pattern interrupts. We're literally inserting a pattern interrupt into your brain as you walk into the event space. So that's like ground level, like what to expect walking in. So all of that happens in one space. And then the rest of the event is what we're trying to do is kind of pull the best of like TED Talks meets South by Southwest. So short bursts of nothing longer than 20 to 30 minutes of content, so that you're not kind of like, all right, here we go. I wish this speaker was over 15 minutes ago type thing, right? Meets this South by Southwest feel, which most people say when they go to Southwest, it's the conversations and the engagement in and around the topics and the kind of like South by Southwest starts throwing concerts early in the day. Now we're not throwing concert at 11 or anything like that, but that the party and the environment are conducive to conversations, rubbing elbows, bumping shoulders, and being in and among the people, not totally spread out where you can't. That's actually something that we kind of like took from the Pasch events, is like, how can we keep people close and not lose them to other spaces, right? There's not 8 hotels that you can go have lunch at. Everything happens kind of in that same space. So you create conversations around it. So that's a major other thing. And then the majority of our content is going to be fireside chattish. We're going to do some cool stuff like Pitch Tank Live, which people might have seen on Clubhouse, or actually we've got a thing, dealers pitching vendors. Well, there'll be 4 or 5 kind of solutions that we don't perceive have been created in automotive, that the vendors and dealers and OEMs in the room might actually have to work to solve. And we're hoping that there's a synthesis of some new partnerships to come out of that, actually. So
no, I love that because, we've been thinking about that we've already got our fall conference set, but for next year is to start cutting down the time and having more speakers with less time versus trying to fill an hour or try to fill 50 minutes. hate to say it, there's very few speakers that you want to, or what happens is you start going, okay, let me start on a new topic instead of let's just focus on one for 20 or 25 minutes. And people go, okay, great. I like that. So I like that idea of the space because it's what it sounds like. I saw the floor plan in the prospectus. It seems like it's a free flow. Like I can go listen to somebody over here for a little bit, then I can flow. And it doesn't feel that odd, that odd feeling when you get up in the middle of somebody's presentation in a locked room and you're like, I'm leaving. I'm leaving,
I mean, if you think about it,
looking at you going and the speaker's looking at you versus that sort of free flow of, well, let me come up here and listen for a little bit, or hey, what's going on over there? So I like that idea of flow, or that word flow. I think that's a really cool thing to I'm looking forward to experiencing.
As far as format goes, there's the main hall is going to have the main stage, but the main hall cannot fit everybody that's going to be at the event. Right. And then the 4 other rooms are going to be, 3 of those rooms are going to be side stages. And another room is going to be kind of like have some meetings and listen to some podcasts because we're doing some live podcasting in there. So they're going to be main stage events, which are, if you want to be in the main hall, you can. If you want to be in the other stages, you can literally, it's going to be simulcast to all the rooms so you can get comfortable where you like. And then the side stages are going to have topical. So one room is on marketing and technology. So that's only about 25% of our content. People think because we're marketing guys, it's going to be a marketing conference. It's not. It's a holistic conference. One of the rooms is going to focus on operations. The other room is going to focus on sales, leadership, and culture. So it's going to be this, some main stage content, then breaking out for some side stage content, and then lunch, and then back together for some main stage content. Monday night, we're actually flipping the whole venue into entertainment mode. So we're going from conference mode to entertainment mode. 5:30 programming ends. We're going to feed everybody and drinks. And then we're opening up the venue to anyone who works at a dealership anywhere can come for free. And there's going to be a silent disco, live karaoke, a DJ. And then we're bringing in Nashville's hottest party band to play an open air concert at night. They're called 12 South, and they're going to destroy the place. It's going to be insane.
That's going to be great.
We want, technicians and lot attendants and BDC reps and every manager that, can't fly somewhere to just drive in and be a part of the event. So it really is going to be a pretty holistic event. There's no exhibit hall, but there are lots of what we call meaningful activations of our sponsors who we're calling collaborators, working on a lot of creative ways to get people to actually understand what you do and interact with you. And so, it's going to be altogether different though.
Well, listen, I could sit and chat with you guys all day. Love chatting with the two of you. You're some of my favorite people out there.
Glenn, real quick, I just appreciate the way that you are like, and you do this on, if people, this is their first year in charge podcast, go back and listen to all of them. Because the first time I was on, I was like, man, this guy comes with the questions, right?
Yeah. Thoughtful questions.
So it's really thoughtful. It actually, it provides us even the space to kind of like work out and think what we're doing.
We said some of the things we said for the first time just now. And I know we're both thinking like, we should talk about that more.
Well, that's awesome. Great. So, I'm going to cut my question short. Usually I ask 5 questions of each because I got 2 people, but I'm curious. I love asking this question to people. So to each of you, and you can answer in turn. I want to go backwards to 15, 16-year-old Kyle, 15, 16-year-old Paul. If that person saw you today, what would they be surprised at? That's first. Number 2 is, if you're looking backwards at that 15, 16-year-old, what's still consistent? What's the trait that still is there in all these years that you've, grown? So whoever wants to jump ball first.
All right. I'll go first and let you finish because this is really easy for me. My 16-year-old self would be like, what? Right? I had no plans or idea of what it was to be in business or do anything. We didn't have any relationship with even a manager of a Burger King, right? So I didn't know any leaders. I didn't know anybody. So I think I would have zero context to process what I do for a living. Not to mention there was like no real internet either.
Right.
So,
okay.
But secondly, what is consistent when I look back at 14, 15, 16, 2 consistent items. Number 1, I work really hard. I was working really hard from a really early age with jobs and always putting my hand to something, both like for money and then just because I enjoyed working. It was just part of my, part of who I am. The second thing, what is consistent is that fact that I just really liked people. I was the kind of person that was friends with every subgroup and every clique. And I really was just kind of that kid that didn't have like one clique, but I just was cool with everybody. So I think those two traits have carried right through into my 40s and will probably continue on.
I agree. All right, Kyle, what about you?
Yeah. So similar in the fact that it's like, you're doing, right? Because I thought at that point, like I was going to be leading worship at churches for the rest of my life, right? I loved playing guitar and singing in the whole 9 yards. And you're doing a podcast with who? And flying across, like my dad never flew in a plane. Like he was always home that time. So like you're flying across, you're doing all this stuff in business. Like that would have just been mind boggling to me to say that was a possibility. But the through line is that, and I'll never forget, but I think I was actually 15 years old. It was a summer when it was a fall, actually 15. And I was at like a weekend youth retreat thing. And I'll never forget this moment. And I'm sitting by myself out on like a park bench. I was actually very introverted at 15. That kind of turned at age 16. And I think it was this perspective that I had when I was 15. It was this like, oh my goodness, people are like broken, hurting, separated, not like there's no commitment to a future mindset with themselves. And I saw this in teenagers, and also like my dad was a pastor, so I saw this in the community that he was building. And so it's wild because that summer, the summer of 15, if you would have met me, you would have been like, Kyle never talks to anyone. The summer of 16, you would have been like, why is this guy everywhere? And it was just, I think it was this flip of like, I just have a passion for seeing people see themselves, see others, and be together and have that like that innate feeling of community. And so since then, it's been that trajectory. And so still building that even today.
I love that. All right. As I said, everyone, audience. So before we leave, tell audience how they can connect with you. Tell them where to get tickets to the event, where to sign up on email, all the rest. Let's roll.
There are two things that we really hope everyone watching and listening to this will do. Number one, we hope you will get our daily email where we try to pack all the stuff we just talked about into an email you can read in just a few minutes. You can get that at asotu.com, ASOTU.com. Secondly, we really want to meet you in person at AsotuCon. So you can go to asotucon.com. You can see all the 50 plus speakers we're going to have there. You can see the venue. You can get all the information, and we hope you buy a ticket. And please do it sooner than later, because we are pretty convinced that some people are going to log in and get the old sold out, which is a terrible feeling.
All right. And both of you guys, they can find you on LinkedIn, social media, everywhere by your names. I'll link it all in the show notes. As I said, guys, I appreciate it. Audience, you know the drill. Make sure that you share this out. There is someone in your network that could benefit from what Paul and Kyle said today. So please be that person that shares it out. Make sure you subscribe, rate, all of that stuff. We'd love to hear from you as well. Remember, this podcast is to help you guys out there when you first take charge of an idea or you're trying to lead something. We're here every week to give you the skills to help you improve both personally and professionally. I thank you because I know there's a lot of places for you to watch and gain content, and your attention this short period of time means the world to me. Thank you all so much. Appreciate it. You too. I cannot wait to see you in person. Thanks again, and we'll see you next week.